But I don't understand why you're here jacking with us.
Find their own city to go to.
The problem would probably be solved if he stayed in his own county and city.
Fort Bend County, go. Do it. Go for it. Mr. Pulliam is, again, I've got no problem with him being here. I've got a problem with what he's reporting here because he is tearing down our city.
There's nothing positive that anyone has told me that has come out of what he's doing to our city. I and most other counselors and many staff members receive very ugly emails.
And Ms. Alcacer just admitted that this rule that we're creating is specifically to target Justin Pulliam because she doesn't like the reaction that she's getting from his online viewers. And I would say, is that his fault or is that, look at your actions?
Government masters frequently discriminate against those who they don't like, while providing special access to those who are favorable to their agenda. The Leon Valley tyrants knew they could not survive the scrutiny of my questions and the truth of my camera. 1 month before voting, they singled me out in an attempt to shut me down. They made it perfectly clear that they were stripping away my First Amendment rights because they did not like the viewpoint of my journalism. Councilman Bradshaw was the exception. He stood up for our rights, and he's the only one who is still on the council today.
And you're using us, and you know you are, as your cash cow for your videotapes. You are. For your YouTube videos. And I don't know how much money you'll make off of me talking to you right now. Probably, I don't know, $100. I'm not worth that much.
Is Councilman Hody worth $100? I made a PayPal poll so we can find out. The link is in the video description below. Leave either a PayPal comment or a video comment with your thoughts about their anti-camera resolution.
Agenda item 9.4, and it reads, discussion and possible action through resolution to or revision of ordinance of the rules of decorum for citizen comments and the use of video recording devices at city council meetings. And this agenda item was requested by Councilor Matthew Hody and Councilor Monica Alcacer. And so, Councilor Hody, would you like to begin the discussion?
I would. Y'all ready for some fun?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, next slide, please. So, Ordinance 2020-33 regarding rules of meeting decorum and conduct was adopted at the July 21st, 2020 Leon Valley City Council meeting. And among other things included how citizens may participate, when citizens may speak, disruptive behavior, recognition by the presiding officer, and enforcement of rules by the presiding officer. Citizens should not be intimidated ever or aggravated by other attendees at meetings. This is for us. This is for the city of Leon Valley. Next. This particular incident occurred at the last city council meeting when two of our own Leon Valley citizens had been harassed to the point that they felt the need to take matters into their own hands. That was extremely uncomfortable for me to watch. Next. So the Texas Open Meetings Act provides as follows. Recording of meeting by person in attendance. So that would be any of y'all out there. A person in attendance may record all or any part of an open meeting of a governmental body by means of a recorder, video camera, or other means of oral or visual reproduction. However, a government body may adopt reasonable rules to maintain order at a meeting, including rules relating to the location of the recording equipment and the manner in which the recording is conducted. However, a rule adopted under subsection B may not prevent or unreasonably impair a person from exercising a right granted under subsection A, which is the right to record. So it is up to the presiding officer, in this case the mayor, to make sure our meetings are run in an efficient manner so the governing body, city council, can take care of city business. If for whatever reason the presiding officer is unable to maintain decorum, council has the duty to assist. It is not fair and it's not just to the citizens and businesses of Leon Valley if we are allowing disturbances to distract from the business at hand. We owe this to the city as a whole. Meetings of the council shall be open to the general public except as may be specifically provided by state law. So that's why everyone's here and no problem. Because council meetings are held to perform the business of the city council, led by the presiding officer, has the duty to carry out meetings in an efficient manner, free of disruptions. Without rules governing conduct and what may be discussed, there may be a tendency by some to abuse or derail the agenda of the public meeting for purposes inconsistent with the legitimate goals of the local government. Disruptive actions can have the effect of hijacking a meeting to include being unreasonably repetitious or by unnecessarily dragging out a topic or even promoting one's personal agenda or business. Council is being prevented from doing the work of the city, so in effect, this is stealing from the citizens of Leon Valley. So, just some possible ideas, rules of decorum for photography and videography for us to discuss. Handheld, single-shot photography of council chambers seats allowed. So that happens and seems to be fine. No continuous or burst shooting mode photography in council chambers. No flash photography. I haven't noticed that as an issue at all. So, video recording only allowed from the lobby, or video recording in council chambers only allowed from along a wall just inside the second door. That's where the TV camera is usually set up. One recording device or camera per person, and if you're creative, you can give your camera or your recording device to somebody else and let them do it as well. Equipment use or placement should never interfere with meetings or with those attending meetings and cannot be left unattended or should not be left unattended. City staff conducting city business, live stream, etc. are exempt. And just remember, we are here to conduct the business of the city, and council discretion on these rules, or these possible rules. As far as comments, citizens of Leon Valley and legitimate Leon Valley businesses will still have the opportunity to speak for up to 3 minutes during the citizens to be heard portion of the agenda and prior to City Council's discussion of each posted agenda item. I think what happened today represented that we allow that. Non-Leon Valley citizens may address council at the first citizens to be heard, or the last, or whichever one is determined for the 3 minutes. Remember, the non-citizens don't have a vested interest in Leon Valley. The citizens do, and again, that's who we are here to represent. As always, individuals requesting to speak must first be recognized by the presiding officer. While the First Amendment clearly states that there can be no law that abridges freedom of speech, it does not create a right to communicate a person's views at all times or in any manner that person desires. Freedom of speech is not a license to abuse, it's a responsibility. We can talk about it.
Mm-hmm. Did you draw those stick figures? I just thought those...
Do you want me to do the water tower? Is that where
well,
you're asking?
I don't know. I was just curious. Who drew those stick figures? I mean, there was a couple of them. Yeah.
Benny Martinez, Seneca. First of all, we are not San Antonio. We are Leon Valley. In fact, when I was on council, I encouraged people to come up and speak. I want to hear from citizens. I hope you do too. Now you're trying to restrict them more. Now, why is this coming, 45 days before the election? We have 2 more council meetings before the election. How many hours have been spent on rules of decorum in the past year? We've had meetings that started at 5:30, and at 7 o'clock you're still talking about rules of decorum. How many times has this subject come up? Stop the nonsense. wait till, if you want something like this, wait till after the election and see if the new council, hopefully we'll have a brand new council and they can handle it. But if this passes, the new council can remove it. So why are we going through this feeble exercise again? We got to stop the nonsense. Please, get some common sense. Thank you.
Justin Pulliam, Fortman County. So police officers, when they're out in the field, they normally have a dash camera that does in front of their car, a cab camera that gets the back seat, a body camera. Got to have a body camera. Often a DSLR, especially if there's an incident, accident, search, that sort of stuff. I guess I'm taken aback by this because 2 weeks ago on Monday, I was sitting right in front of Councilor Hody, and I was filming, and I went out and talked to him. I invited him for an interview. I asked, if there was any, make sure he could see and everything, and if there was any problem, just to knock on the window or whatever and let me know. And something to the extent of, oh, it was fine. I'll put it on my YouTube channel so everyone can see exactly what happened. Also, if everyone would like to see exactly what was happened, I figured there would be some false narrative thrown at me tonight. So at noon today, I posted a YouTube video on Justin Pulliam, and I wish we could show it for evidence, since this is clearly a very targeted ordinance that's proposed. Again, viewpoint discrimination, nonstop. I don't know where the city attorney is on this. I guess he's tuned out. If we could show that video, it's real short, just a couple minutes. It'll show exactly what happened. It will show that I was trying to document city administrators that wanted to have conversations outside instead of inside. It'll show that people took out their lights and randomly started strobing them at me and others. It will show that someone immediately came after me with a cane and within 4 seconds had already finished, threatened to whack me, and the false narratives to shut down anyone who pays attention to what happens at the city. I read through the whole agenda packet. Has anyone else done that? I didn't see this PowerPoint. When the mayor had a presentation that I hope we get to tonight, it had to be shut down 2 weeks ago. This one, it's on here even though it wasn't in the agenda packet. Just like a screenshot and affidavits from the city secretary, all sorts of crazy stuff. So I just don't understand why we can't come and speak about what we see at the city, why we can't ask questions, why we can't be critical of our government. It is our right. And I think there's probably 1,000 people who literally have my back on this right now. I just wish y'all would just put this petty stuff aside until after. Y'all are already going after Mr. Bradshaw. Can't that be enough until November? Thank you, Mayor and Council.
Ms. Joseph?
I agree with Mr. Pulliam. I think this is a frivolous attempt.
Excuse me just a second. Ms. Joseph, can you pull the microphone down just a little bit so we can make sure we can hear you? There you go. Thank you.
A frivolous attempt to continue. You've already gone over this stuff. And why are we keep going over and over and over? This is really city business that you're so concerned about whether people are videotaping you or not or recording you. We've done this for a long time now, and it's just frivolous. It's another waste of time, taxpayers' money, and I hope it stops soon. It's really embarrassing.
Josh Stevens from Forest Oaks. So I do appreciate the stick figures. That was nice. But I was kind of surprised because you had really good citations for your one law about recording the meeting, but you didn't have any anything about commenting in the meeting. And I just want to refute Mr. Bull's claim earlier that the city of San Antonio only allows one comment per person per meeting. That's false. September of last year, Andy Segovia, the city attorney, the same one that participated in the arbitration against Chief Joe, he clearly said that citizens and all members of the public have the right to speak on every agenda item. And so, in fact, there's still, if you watch this council meeting, there's a couple of people that go and sign up for every agenda item. before, and they do require a sign up, but they sign up for every agenda item. And then a lot of times they'll go up to the podium and say, I'll pass on this one. I don't really have anything to say, or, whatever the case may be. But they recognize that the law requires that they're allowed to speak on each and every agenda item before, and I'll read you the quote of law that was missing from the PowerPoint. A governmental body shall allow each member of the public who desires to address the body regarding an item on an agenda for an open meeting of the body to address the body regarding the item at the meeting before or during the body's consideration of the item. So it would be an agenda item. And it's just, it's kind of intriguing. And I also want to add to that, there's not a residency requirement in this. It says, a governmental body shall allow each member of the public. Everybody's a member of the public. So I don't know why we're trying, I'm already very concerned that the city is opening themselves up to liability because they're trying to force a residency requirement that is like explicitly not allowed in Texas law. Like it says, a member of the public. But nonetheless, I do hope that if you're going to create rules regarding the equipment placement and stuff, first educate the citizens that anybody can, it's Texas law explicitly allows people to record meetings. And so I think people in the public need to know that, because I know that was the case. One of the people from the last meeting, he just wasn't that aware and informed of the Texas law, so which is understandable. But I hope that you're realistic with it as well. And so I hope that any rules that you may try to implement are logical, they're thought through, they're thought about the fact that, there's barely any people allowed in the council chambers during the time of COVID because of the spacing and stuff like that. So that's just my thoughts. So thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Mayor, Mr. Pulliam came up and has repeatedly said that he's worried for his safety. He's getting threats. I guess Mr. Rainey attempted to assault him with his cane. I can almost guarantee that the problem would probably be solved if he stayed in his own county and city.
Okay. Anyone else? Councilor Alcacer, you were the second on this agenda item. Do you have anything to add to what Mr. Hody has presented?
Yes, ma'am. I'd like to thank Matthew for putting together a thorough and interesting presentation. I support what he's trying to do. I think the open speech is supposed to be at city meetings. It's, as the attorney said earlier, it's a limited public forum. And people who are doing videos for their own, to make money, I guess it's their only source of income, to make money for themselves and do not live or have any true interest in the city, find their own city to go to. We don't need to have the meetings happening like they're happening. Legitimate residents, everything, they have more chance to speak, as every attorney has told us, than any other city that they've ever participated in. So the people who say we're trying to take away their rights is so far removed from reality. I do think the cameras have become an interference. I don't think council people should be doing videos from the dais. I do think I like all of the suggestions that Matthew has come up with. Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else? Yes, Councilor Bradshaw.
So I have to agree with the citizens that have spoken, especially Mr. Pulliam, that this is very targeted. We just reviewed rules of decorum, a few months ago and made changes to it. And now we've got to add more. And why? Because we've got people that are coming and filming council meetings. I'm filming the chambers. And I have to ask myself, why is that? What's changed? What's changed is there's things going on during the meetings that are not being recorded, and then there's allegations being thrown around of what happened, and there's no evidence of it. It's just one side against another saying what happened. So me recording here is for my own safety and protection. It's unfortunate that that's the world we live in now, that we have to do that. These other residents here that are wearing body cameras are doing it for their own protection because they're being accused of things that they can show on video they did not do. And furthermore, you make these rules, say one recording device per person. I guarantee you the next thing that will happen is somebody will come in with 3 friends with 3 other cameras. And then we'll say, oh, one recording device per 2 people. Then they'll have 6 friends. And then you're going to make a rule, they're going to find a way around it. That's what's going to happen. So rather than try and regulate the people away from showing what's going on, and the whole point of the Texas government code recording of meetings is to show an open and transparent government, which is I've been hounding upon for the last several months. We need to be open and transparent. And we're trying to find more ways to shut people up that aren't residents of our city. So you're telling me that people come through here and get a red light traffic ticket and they don't like it, they can't come and address city council? They only get 3 minutes, they've got to do it one time, that's it, and there's something else they can't talk about? I just don't think it's right. It's not an issue. It's a targeted attempt to try and shut up certain people. And I am against these silly rules of decorum. Thank you.
Okay. Yes, Councilor Hody.
So I've been asked by residents prior to this, prior to last week, prior to whenever it was that I turned this in, about what's going on here as far as the non-residents. And their interpretation was that it's interfering with what the citizens here, the citizens of Leon Valley, is why we're here. That's it. That's the reason that we're here. We're not here to shut down Mr. Pulliam. He can still talk. He can record. And Mr. Bradshaw, maybe you're right. If they want to carry a bunch of stuff on them as far as cameras, I don't have a problem with that, really. It's just when they get in the way. Mr. Pulliam has brought up his camera to the podium during the citizens to be heard that he speaks at, practically every item, which is the way that we've got it set up right now. And he's turning and flashing it around, and it's bothersome. And then as far as the gentleman at the last meeting, I watched as he told Mr. Pulliam, I don't want to be videotaped, or whatever it was that he said exactly. And I believe that he lives over in your neighborhood, by the way. And Mr. Pulliam did it even more. Didn't push it in his face or anything, but he continued to record, kind of like to aggravate him. Well, this is an elderly gentleman. It's a citizen of Leon Valley, and I was hoping is what he would do is stop.
Would you like the answers? Hey man, don't you take my picture. I'll whack your ass.
But it's like he continued it just to aggravate him. And then that's when, and he was wrong, to raise his cane. Nothing happened. But he was escorted out into the lobby. You didn't have to leave. Even though I watched to see what happened, but you didn't, I guess technically didn't do anything wrong, but just the fact that you continued to record in his face like that after he had asked you not to, it's your right to record, but how about a little civility, for crying out loud? And as far as citizens of Leon Valley, I'm not stopping anything else from them, Mr. Martinez. That's fine. They can continue to speak at every one of the items for up to 3 minutes, like we decided at the beginning when we have one and at the end when we have time to. I've got no problem with that, with the citizens of Leon Valley. Now, I wanted to ask Mr. Zeck, if he's there, are you?
Mr. Zeck, are you on the line?
Yes, I am.
Okay, Mr. Hody has a question, and I also have one too for you. Yes, go ahead, sir.
So I don't want to break any of the, the new Texas rules that gives the citizens the right to speak. I've got no problem with that. But are we obligated to allow non-citizens to speak at every item? Did I misread that, or as long as we do it once, or do we have to do it at all? What's the deal with that?
The statute says that a governmental body shall allow each member of the public who desire to address the body regarding an item on the agenda for open meeting of the body to address the body regarding the item at the meeting before or during the body's consideration of the item. The term used is public, member of the public. It doesn't say citizen. The member of the public, in my opinion, is a broader term than citizen. And so it would be every member who is in attendance at the meeting.
Okay, so when it talked about reasonable rules, it's not going to cover that then. It's anybody and everybody can come in here and speak at every item and slow our meetings down to where we can't take care of our own residents. Okay.
Sure, that's a different question. And whether or not this government implementation of a rule that gives less time to someone who is not a citizen is reasonable is going to be subject to an interpretation by the courts, unfortunately, because it's a subjective term, and the courts ultimately are going to determine whether or not that's reasonable or not.
Okay, I didn't really.
I'm happy to. And that that's about as far as I'm willing to go with respect to a discussion from my legal perspective in an open session. If counsel would like to hear more detailed analysis and my legal opinions with respect to what they can or cannot do, I'm happy to provide that in a closed session.
Okay, that's up to everybody
Mayor,
else.
can we take the time to go into a closed session to get, so that we can make the correct decision on this item,
If this
please?
is the council consensus, I just had one other legal question I wanted to ask before we go, if that's, and we'll take a vote on that. Mr. Zach, what is the rule on videotaping a person in council chambers?
There isn't any rule stated in the statute with respect to videotaping an individual in council member chambers. The statute again gives the council the authority to make reasonable rules associated with videotaping individuals.
Okay, right. Okay, so I appreciate Mr. Hody. I know this was an outgrowth. This agenda item was an outgrowth that what happened last meeting, which I'm always amazed, but we had this little problem with two people in the chambers, one with the videotape and one with the flashlight. So I understand where you're coming from. You'd like to try to, get that under control. And I mean, probably in hindsight's always better than foresight, right? Probably should have just excused both of them into the foyer, because it was bothersome with the light. But I also understood that Mr. Pulliam has a right to do his videotaping. I just didn't know what the rules were as far as who he videotapes, and you have to have permission or something like that. So then also we did have a citizen last meeting that wrote in that wanted this to be addressed as well. So I think you were trying to respond to that citizen as well. Anyway, member of the okay. So Ms. Alcacer has requested that we go into executive session on this item to get a legal opinion from our attorney, Charlie Zeck. And does anyone object to that? Yes. Counselor?
Mayor, we've already been in 3 executive sessions tonight, and it's already after 9 o'clock, and I'm afraid there's some other issues on the agenda item that I'd like to get to tonight, especially the emergency declaration. We can try to make some changes to that if we could, so I would like to get to that before we finish. So I would ask that we table this item for another night if we want to get legal advice. Put it to the next agenda.
Okay.
And I can, to Councilmember Bradshaw's point with respect to the agenda, I don't believe there is an actual ordinance or resolution on the agenda. So the only thing you could really do tonight is give direction, and I can be prepared to give legal advice on that direction at the next meeting, and then you can amend or you can revise the ordinance based on that legal direction at the meeting.
Okay.
I'm not sure what you're talking about, but whether it's this item or the other items, but we'd like to do a resolution tonight on the video cam recordings. At
Right.
least.
Sure, you can do that, and that doesn't have anything to do with the question related to citizens' comments. So it's two separate issues. The citizen comment would have to be amended by ordinance, and you don't have an ordinance on the agenda tonight, so you can't amend that. But you can give direction to bring an ordinance back, and at that meeting, I can give legal advice with respect to the direction that you've given.
We do have on this item like a first read for the parts we can't have a resolution on.
Do you have, well, actually, unless you have an ordinance physically present in your packet, you can't do that.
Okay.
believe-
We'd like to do a resolution, so we can do that without going through with the consultation at this point?
Yes, ma'am, because the resolution would just be the rules for videotaping, there's my age, video recording, and you can do that by resolution. And you're not required to have a resolution physically present in front of you to adopt a resolution.
Okay.
There's a lot to think about with
Yeah.
this, but if Mr. Pulliam would just not be waving that camera around all the time, he can do what he wants as far as videotaping us. That's fine. That's his right to do that, no matter what we decide about anything else.
Okay, so
So
that one may not be included. I just was curious.
I don't know
as-
if it's a reasonable one or not. These
No,
are
was
just things that I
curious
threw
as to
out
where
there.
that was and what would happen if we had more than one and social distancing. Those just popped into my mind. So, okay. Councilor Alcacer. Thank you, Ms. Crystal.
Yeah, I had an additional comment before we do a motion, Mayor.
Okay.
One of the added factors, and Councilor Bradshaw keeps saying, well, what's the difference? Since this has been going on every week, and particularly after meetings, I and most other counselors and many staff members receive very ugly emails making comments about that are very sexually oriented, mentally oriented, physically oriented, just unbelievably ugly emails as a result of what Mr. Pulliam is doing. And that's an additional reason. There's nothing positive that anyone has told me that has come out of what he's doing to our city. So it's not meant for him personally, because there would be other people doing it, but it's meant to try to get some true decorum back into our meetings. And Matthew, will you please do the motion?
Okay. I've got another counselor who wants to speak, and then I'll send it to Mr. Hody. Yes. Councilor Bradshaw?
I'd just like to respond to a couple of things here. I have also received some threatening or ugly emails, as Ms. Alcacer stated, after some meetings. Not many, but some. but I've received an overwhelming amount of support of emails and messages of people that are seeing what's going on in our little town and are sick and tired of the unconstitutionality of this council body and what they're doing to get rid of the minority voices that are elected by the citizens and silencing the citizens and doing what they want. And they just want to do their own agenda and not listen to public input. That's the messages that I am getting. And another thing, Councilman Hody, if you paid attention to what was happening that night, Mr. Pulliam was recording Chief Salvaggio as he walked to the back of the room. He turned his camera to follow him to go talk to another citizen. And this citizen who lives in my neighborhood happened to be in between the two. So he turned his camera, and that's when that citizen stood up and said, "You better not record me," and came at him with his cane ready to hit him. Now, I don't know about you, if somebody's threatening to hit me or stab me or punch me and says, "Stop recording me or I'm going to punch you or stab you," I'm not going to take the camera off of them, because next thing you know, they're going to stab me or hit me or do something else, and then I won't have any evidence of it. So I don't blame him for not taking his camera off of him. He didn't put it in his face. He just held it there. So again, and Ms. Alcacer just admitted that this rule that we're creating is specifically to target Justin Pulliam, because she doesn't like the reaction that she's getting from his online viewers. And I would say, is that his fault, or is that, look at your actions? That's all I'm saying. Thank you.
No, I'd just like to say that
Yes,
before,
Councilor Hody.
I'm sorry, ma'am.
No, that's go ahead.
Before the, we'll call it the cane incident, this was before the cane, Mr. Bradshaw. This was when he was just recording Mr. Rainey, for whatever reason, and Mr. Rainey said, "No, don't." And then it was, as I recall, later on, not a lot later on, but, there was a break between that he did it again. Mr. Pulliam is, again, I've got no problem with him being here. I've got a problem with what he's reporting here, because he is tearing down our city. He just is. There's no two ways about it. And why y'all support him, I don't know. If he wants to report something well here, that's fine. There's nothing going on devious, that needs to be recorded. The flashlight cane incident, yes, that got stopped. It needed to get stopped. But I also know what triggered it, or had triggered it from past meetings. And so, decorum is the key word here. And none of this would be necessary if there was decorum, by our visitors, Mr. Pulliam. You're a visitor here. You're a citizen of the United States. You're not a citizen of Leon Valley. You're not. And you're using us, and you are, as your cash cow for your videotapes. You are. For your YouTube videos. And I don't know how much money you'll make off of me talking to you right now. Probably, I don't know, $100. I'm not worth that much. So this is my point, and this is why I'm trying to put something in place that will slow this down. Mr. Bradshaw mentioned earlier, then we're going to cut it down to only one camera per two people. And, oh, come on. Stop that. That's nonsense. I'm just trying to find a way to limit the interactions between visitors here with cameras in people's face and our residents of Leon Valley. The residents of Leon Valley is who I'm talking about in this place, or for this, not Mr. Pulliam. Fort Bend County, go do it, go for it. But I don't understand why you're here jacking with us. Doesn't make sense.
Who is that speaking? Councilor Alcacer?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, you're recognized. Go ahead.
I'd like to make a motion that we have a resolution for our rules of decorum regarding video recording being only allowed from the lobby or in council chambers, only allowed from along the wall, just inside the second door, with only one recording device or camera per person, that the equipment used or placement should never interfere with meetings or with those attending meetings and should not be left unattended, that the city staff conducting city business and the meeting being live streamed and things like that are exempt. I second.
All right, we have a motion by Counselor Alcacer and a second by Counselor Charles to adopt a resolution for the rules of decorum regarding video recording. Okay. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed?
Nay.
The motion carries 4 ayes and 1 nay.
The Leon Valley revenue scheme relies upon sucking cash from people who don't live in Leon Valley. The red light cameras, impound lot, and police enforcement disproportionately target non-residents. Almost all of the red light camera revenue comes from non-residents, and non-residents are frequently abused by the police department. The Leon Valley government is bloated, and non-residents are the cash cow that keeps it afloat. It's no wonder they want to silence us. But the Constitution protects our right to speak out against government, and the city cannot legally discriminate based upon residency. Unfortunately, the current city council has recently been weak on this issue.
It's up to y'all. I mean, I was going to say if it was the chair's ruling, I would say it does not fall in line with our current rules, which says we can't read out letters from outside the community. So, yes, sir. Councilmember Bradshaw, thank you.
Thank you, Mayor.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I would just say for now, let's just follow the rules the way they are. We'll, like you said, we'll go and revisit them,
Right.
but for now, let's add it to the record.
Okay, very good. So we will add Mr. Page's letter to the record, and we will again take this up on Tuesday, March the 9th. Yes, Councilor Stevens.
And so I agree with Councilor Bradshaw. I do regret that we are not reading letters, and so I think we can come up with a creative plan in the future
I think so.
to read these like before the meeting, for example, so it doesn't use up time. But for now, we'll just
Good
stick
idea.
with what we have, and so hopefully these citizens that do want to, or members of the public that want to participate can still do so. It just doesn't use up the limited amount of time that we do have. So
Very good. Thank you for that. I really appreciate that input.
Recording government is not just for journalism and activism. Exercising your right to record is also important for your personal safety. Government employees often lie and push false accusations. For example, Salvaggio running into Josh Stevens and then filing felony assault charges against Stevens, who was an organizer of the recall petition. Had public body cameras been rolling, Salvaggio's word on the police lie reports would have been discredited. But without indisputable evidence to expose their lies, police are able to say anything they want and get away with it. You too should wear a body camera. A link to the CamPro body camera that many of us use is linked to in the video description below. Always video record the government. Have a great day.